a roll of aluminum foil, a box of baking soda, water, 3 materials you have in your kitchen right now. 3 materials that together replicate the exact same chemistry that the Royal Society of London recorded in 1748, that Alessandro Volta turned into the first battery in history in 1800, and that powered the global telegraph network for 70 years before the modern lithium industry buried them under voltage standards designed to keep your kitchen out of its business model. Estimated total cost of the entire system, less than $3. It's not free energy, it's not perpetual motion, it's not magic, it's not green marketing, it's not a children's science fair project. It's documented electrochemistry that the US military has used in military applications for 6 decades, and that the rechargeable battery industry quietly buried under incompatible voltage standards specifically designed to keep it out of your kitchen. The entire system rests on 5 cylinders. The first is the foil. It's the material that delivers the electrons. The stuff you probably have wrapping leftover food in your fridge right now without suspecting it's solidified electricity. The second is the powder. It's what sparks the reaction. Without it, the foil remains dormant for years without delivering a single electron. The third is the receiver. It's what closes the circuit on the other side, and where the first group of beginners ruins the system by using the wrong material. The fourth is the battery, the physical stack, the geometry that determines whether your system delivers 2V or 20V. The fifth is the tongue. It's the only one that has nothing to do with chemistry, and it's where the other 90% fail, not because of a technical error, but because of something more subtle than a technical error. We're going to get to the point. A system that doesn't get paid every month never gets promoted. London, England, 1748. A physician and scientist named William Watson, a member of the Royal Society, conducts experiments with the Lidl bottle and discovers something that will change history. Electricity is not a property of an individual body. It is a flow that travels from high to low, like water down an invisible slope. The Royal Society recorded its findings in its philosophical transactions. For the first time in history, someone had demonstrated that electricity could be thought of as a continuous fluid. Watson had opened the door to everything that followed. 43 years later, in Bologna, the physician Luigi Galvani touched the dead leg of a frog with 2 different metals. The leg twitched. He believed that electricity resided in the animal tissue. He was wrong in his interpretation, but he had made one of the most important discoveries in history. Another Italian, Alessandro Volta, disagreed with Galvani. Volta suspected that the electricity did not come from the frog, but from the contact between the 2 different metals through a moist medium. To test this, in 1800, he stacked alternating discs of zinc and copper, separated by cardboard soaked in salt water, and connected the 2 ends with a wire. He obtained a continuous and stable electric current for hours, the first battery in human history, the Voltic pile. 3 principles work simultaneously in this stack. Any pair of dissimilar metals separated by an ionic medium generates electricity. The simplest ionic medium in the world is salt water or baking soda water, and chemical electricity doesn't need magnets or mechanical movement, just a potential difference and an electrolyte. In 1836, the English chemist John Frederic Daniell refined the principle, creating a much more stable pile. The world's first telegraph line between Washington and Baltimore, inaugurated on May 24, 1844, operated using Daniell piles. The entire global telegraph network, with more than 2 million kilometers of cables, was sustained by millions of chemical piles using simple metals and basic electrolytes. Aluminum came later. The Hull-Herald process, discovered simultaneously by Charles Martin and Paul Herald in 1886, made its industrial production possible. Approximately 14 kilodoulops of electricity is used for every kilogram of aluminum produced. This energy is stored in the metal. Every sheet of aluminum in your kitchen is solidified electricity, waiting for something to release it. In 1965, scientists at the Stanford Research Institute discovered how to release that energy in a controlled manner. They called it an aluminum air battery. 8.1 kilowatts per kilogram of aluminum consumed, 4 times the energy density of the lithium batteries in your phone right now. Livermore National Laboratory developed prototype electric vehicles that could travel over 100 kilometers in a single charge. And then, in the 1990s, the technology vanished from the public consciousness. What happened? Here's the question no one wants to answer. If Watson patented the principle in 1748, if Volta perfected it in 1800, if the global telegraph network operated for a century using similar primary chemistry, if the most serious military laboratories on the planet have been using aluminum as an electrical fuel for half a century, why doesn't your house have a single aluminum air battery for emergencies? The answer has a name: standardization. The 1990s. The global consumer electronics industry bets massively on a single chemistry, lithium-ion. The reasons are commercial, not technical. A rechargeable lithium battery creates a repeatable business model. The consumer buys the device with the battery already installed. The battery loses capacity with each charge cycle. After 500 to 1,000 cycles, it's degraded. The consumer buys another device because replacing the battery usually costs almost as much as a new appliance. Primary chemical batteries, those that are rebuilt by replacing the consumed material, don't fit into this model. An aluminum bicarbonate battery is a primary battery. It's not electrically recharged. It's recharged by physically replacing the consumed aluminum and refreshing the electrolyte. Cost per recharge, pennies. Frequency, weeks or months depending on usage. Failure rate, virtually zero because there are no electronic components to burn out. Who can compete with such a product? No one. Not Panasonic, not Samsung SDI, not LG Cham, not Tesla. The entire rechargeable lithium industry was built around a simple premise. The consumer must buy again. But the coolest move wasn't commercial, it was regulatory. And this is the detail almost no one tells you. In 1991, the International Electrotechnical Commission, known as the EAC, published the EA 68866 standard, which defines the nominal voltages of batteries for consumer electronics. The standard focuses on 3.7 V cells for lithium-ion and 1.5 V for alkaline. From that point on, commercial electronic devices are designed to accept only those voltages. A traditional Daniell cell delivers 1.1 V. An aluminum air cell delivers between 1.2 and 1.5 V. A homemade aluminum bicarbonate cell, depending on the design, delivers between 0.7 and 1.2 slavs per cell. None of these chemistries are compatible with the standardized voltages of modern electronics. To power a 3.7 V device from a homemade battery, you need to stack several cells in series or use a voltage regulator. Extra work, additional knowledge, an additional barrier for the casual user. Did they make the aluminum baking soda battery illegal? No. Anyone can legally assemble one at home, but they did something more effective than simply prohibiting it. They made it incompatible by design with the electronics you already own. And that's what the title of this video rightly calls for, making it illegal in practice. This isn't conspiracy theory, it's incentive arithmetic. A battery that is rebuilt from recycled materials, that doesn't require proprietary components, that has no fixed expiration date, doesn't generate recurring revenue for anyone, and anything that doesn't generate recurring revenue eventually becomes invisible to the culture. A system that doesn't charge every month is never promoted. Here's the smoking gun. In 2014, an Israeli company called Finergy publicly unveiled an aluminum air battery electric car that traveled 1,750 kilometers on a single charge. Backed by Alcoa, the world's second largest aluminum producer, it's still active today, selling stationary systems to telecom operators in India and sub-Saharan Africa. Technology isn't marginal, it's ignored. In 2018, a team from the University of Lancaster published a study on aluminum batteries in low-demand household applications. The conclusion was that for continuous loads of less than 5 W, such as an LED bulb, a wireless router, a radio, or a mobile phone charger, a homemade battery with 200 to 300 drons of recycled aluminum delivers 30 to 60 hours of continuous operation before needing to be recharged. That's 30 to 60 hours of backup power for less than $3 in materials. In 2020, a joint study by Princeton University and Tianjin University confirmed the optimal combination for household use. Distilled water, with 10% by weight sodium bicarbonate and 2% non-iodized salt. In 2022, the International Energy Agency identified primary aluminum chemical batteries as one of the 3 most viable technologies for low-power rural electrification in regions without a reliable grid. What in the West is forgotten technology, in other parts of the world, becomes backup infrastructure. The chemistry didn't fail, cultural memory failed. But before I show you the 5 cylinders, I have to warn you honestly about something. This battery is not a universal solution. What it can do is keep an LED bulb lit for weeks, charge phones and radios during extended power outages, and serve as silent backup for essential circuits. What it can't do is power a refrigerator continuously, replace an entire solar system, or run high-consumption appliances. Any video that promises you that is misleading you. Technical honesty is part of the process. 90% of failures don't occur in the foil, the powder, the receiver, or the battery itself. They occur in the way your homemade battery connects to the electronics standardized by the IC in 1991. Let's get to the point. Now, what matters? How is it made? Cylinder 1. The foil is aluminum. The anode is the material that donates the electrons and is literally the fuel of the system. Good quality household aluminum foil with a minimum, thickness of 15 microns. The cheapest option is standard kitchen foil, which sells in 30-meter rolls for around $1. Each roll contains approximately 300 grams of exposed metallic aluminum, enough for 6 to 10 chemical refills of the entire system. Pre-preparation. Some brands have a light coating of mineral oil or nonstick material that slows the reaction for the first few hours. Gently rub each sheet with a dry cloth before use. 60 seconds per sheet. Sheets approximately 10 x 15 centimeters, folded twice to increase rigidity and expose surface area, 4 to 6 sheets per basic cell. Cylinder 2, the powder is sodium bicarbonate, the ionic catalyst that initiates the reaction. Why bicarbonate and not regular sodium bicarbonate? Both work, but bicarbonate keeps the electrolyte slightly alkaline, protects certain receiver components, reduces the formation of parasitic hydrogen gas, and slows self-discharge during periods of inactivity. Basic formula: 1 L of distilled water or previously boiled and cooled tap water, 100 grar of common baking soda, 20 grar of non-iodized table salt to supplement ionic conductivity. Stir for 10 minutes until completely dissolved. Let stand for 30 minutes before charging the system. Total electrolyte cost per charge, less than 3 cylinders. The receiver. This is where the first group of beginners fails. Pay attention. The receiver is the cathode, the piece opposite the aluminum in each cell, where the electrons released by the foil re-enter the circuit after traveling through the external wire and the device they power. The correct material is carbon. Graphite rods salvaged from large depleted D-type alkaline batteries or commercial graphite welding rods. 3 to 5 parallel rods per cell, submerged in the powder, but without directly touching the aluminum foil. The fatal mistake, using copper or iron as the receiver. These metals also react with the electrolyte and create a parasitic reaction that discharges the system in hours. Carbon is practically inert. It receives the electrons, delivers them to the circuit, and is not consumed. A graphite rod lasts for years. The aluminum foil is consumed. The receiving rod remains. Cost, dollars in commercial rods. 0 if you recover them from depleted alkaline batteries with pliers. Cylinder 4, the cell. This is where the system's historical name originates. The word pila comes from the Italian pila, meaning stack. Volta stacked his disks because each cell generates only about 1 volt. To obtain usable voltages, you have to stack them. A single aluminum bicarbonate cell delivers between 0.7 and 1.2 V, depending on the purity of the aluminum, the ambient temperature, and the concentration of the electrolyte. To power a 3V LED bulb, you need to stack 3 to 4 cells in series. To charge a mobile phone with a regulator, you need 6 to 8 cells. To power a 12V wireless router, you need 12 to 14 cells in series. Physical construction. Individual plastic containers for each cell, approximately 12 x 20 x 5 centimeters, electrically connected by insulated wires linking the carbon of one cell to the aluminum of the next. The stack can be arranged horizontally on a table. What matters is the series electrical connection, not the geometric arrangement. Total cost of the plastic container for 10 cells, between $6 and $14 in recyclable food boxes. Cylinder 5, the tongue. This is where the other 90% fails. Pay attention again. The aluminum bicarbonate battery delivers voltages that don't match modern electronics standards. That's the trap designed by the 1991 IC standardization. For the homemade battery to communicate with your phone, your router, your radio, you need a translator between the two electrical languages. That language is called a voltage regulator, buck step down regulator. If the battery delivers more voltage than the device needs, a buck step up regulator is used if it delivers less. To charge a cell phone that needs exactly 5V, a commercial regulator module costs between $2 and $10 at any electronics store. Without the regulator, the system delivers erratic voltages that damage the device's components. With the regulator, it delivers exactly the voltage the device expects. The difference between destroying a phone in hours and keeping it charged for weeks is a homemade regulator module. It's the cheapest, most invisible component, and the one that determines whether the previous 4 are of any use. Climate adaptations. In dry temperate climates like central Mexico, inland Spain, or northern Argentina, the system works in the standard way with chemical recharging every 4 to 6 weeks. In humid tropical climates, store the cells with the electrolyte removed between power outages. Ambient humidity accelerates self-discharge. In extremely hot, arid climates, replenish with distilled water every 5 to 7 days. In cold continental climates, the system works down to 0 degrees Celsius. Below, the powder partially freezes and the current drops. Insulate the containers or store them indoors in a climate-controlled environment. What you just learned doesn't make you someone who saves on their electricity bill, doesn't make you a more efficient consumer, doesn't make you a green customer for an institutional campaign. It makes you a kitchen chemist. A direct descendant of William Watson of the Royal Society, of Alessandro Volta of Pavia, of John Frederic Daniell, who illuminated the world's first telegraph. 3 centuries of accumulated and forgotten chemistry, now on your own countertop. Each cylinder you build is a link in a chain that the rechargeable battery industry tried to break with IEC standardization, incompatible voltages, and the buy and buy again model. The foil is the first, the powder is the second, the receiver is the third, the cell is the fourth, the tongue is the fifth. When all five are in place, the chain is whole again. The four mistakes that destroy the kitchen chemist's system. Mistake 1, metal receiver instead of carbon. Parasitic drain in hours. System dead before the first full day. Error 2, skipping the channel, damage to the connected device, or erratic delivery that the user interprets as a system failure when the real problem is not having installed a battery module. Error 3, unboiled tap water in areas with heavy chlorination. Residual chlorine interferes with the chemistry and drastically reduces the lifespan of each refill. Error 4, overestimating expectations. If you expect to power a refrigerator, you'll be disappointed. If you expect LED lighting, mobile phone charging, an emergency radio, and a small router during 48-hour blackouts, the system delivers exactly that reliably for years. Imagine the night. It's February. A windstorm has downed 3 high-voltage lines. The company says a minimum of 40 hours until service is restored. Your neighbors light candles and alkaline battery-powered flashlights that will be dead in 6 hours, not in your kitchen. On the counter, a row of 12 plastic containers connected with insulated wires. Inside each one are folded aluminum foils, graphite rods, and 1 liter of bicarbonate electrolyte. The output passes through a regulator module that delivers a stable 5 volts to a USB cable. The radio broadcasts the weather report. An LED strip illuminates the table where your child is reading. The router blinks green. No fan, no motor, no noise. Just 12 plastic containers holding a silent chemical reaction between recycled aluminum and bicarbonate, delivering the 5 watts your home needs until the grid is back up the day after tomorrow. William Watson began documenting this chemistry in 1748. Alessandro Volta stacked the first discs in 1800. The global telegraph network operated using this same chemical family for 70 years. And now, 3 centuries after Watson, the exact same physics is still at work in your kitchen while your neighbors wait in the dark. A system that doesn't charge monthly, never advertises, and now you've built it. You're not simply assembling a homemade battery. You're reactivating a chemical heritage that 3 centuries of scientists set in motion and that the modern lithium industry turned into a rechargeable commodity with an expiration date and a deliberately incompatible voltage standard. We are going to unearth the low-head hydroelectric system that illuminated entire villages with less than 1 meter of water drop, without dams, without industrial turbines,